What's up, everyone? This is actually part 5 and I forgot to start recording, but here I am. Engine and trans are coming out together and we're going to be throwing in the new engine, new to me at least. So whoever didn't figure it out, I guess, or whoever didn't watch the last video, we're going to be swapping in a J37A2 out of a 2009 Acura RL. When I got it out of the car, well, they pulled it for me, but they told me that somebody had bought the intake manifold off of it. So that kind of sucks because it is an upgrade, but I don't care right now. All that matters is I need a good running engine, and I'm really hoping for that J37 to be good. So I'm in the process of removing the CV axles, and that's honestly the pain in the ass part, for me at least. And loosen the 36mm nut. Then you gotta actually loosen the ball joint too, because you wouldn't be able to wiggle the axle out. And then I also take off the strut fork. The strut fork is a 14mm up top and a 17mm at the bottom, and you pull the bolt out. And then once you loosen up that ball joint, usually I hit it with a hammer, or you can use a special tool to press it out if you want to be careful. Either way it goes, I've always damaged them. So I always try to be extra careful now. I don't want to relive going through the pain of a strip ball joint. Anyways, I got to do that to the other side as well. Afterwards, I can loosen up the rear engine mount, and then loosen up the side engine mount, and then loosen up the transmission mount, and then finish disconnecting the transmission lines. I already unbolted the front engine mount. You see there's a 14mm that holds that bolt in, and there's a bracket that's 17mm nuts, but I already got those off. Heater hoses are disconnected. Fuel line's disconnected again. Disconnected the ECM harness and disconnected any ground. There's a ground there disconnected. Same thing for the starter wire, disconnected that. Obviously I took off the air intake. Try to move everything to the back because it looks like we'll have plenty of room to get it out from the top. I think I'll have to scoot it forward a little bit when I'm coming out, since the rear cat looks like it won't clear by just a little bit. So just tilt it forward or scoot it forward a little bit and then come out. But yeah, get this axle out too. Unfortunately, that looks like it's chewed the heck up. So let me keep going and I'll update once I start coming out. Oh, also, unbolt the AC compressor. 4 12mm bolts, and then just lay it there. Okay, slowly coming out. Trying to make sure I don't hit the rear firewall. That engine mount bracket's the one thing I gotta keep an eye on. Right now I'm just gonna go ahead and take off the alternator and the cat, and maybe this bracket over here to get some more space, so I can scoot it over forward some more. Probably gonna have to take off the hood. Yes, I'm using a seatbelt. Don't do this at home. I don't care, actually. So let me keep on going. Finally, here we are. Engine's out, and next we gotta separate the trans, but I'm done for today. Also, we do have to move over a couple things. Going from J35 J37, you do have to go remove the, well, for one, I think the front engine mount bracket, rear engine mount bracket, the AC compressor bracket. I think you also have to reuse the camshaft sensor up here on the upper timing gear. I'll double check that. Oil pan, I don't know about the oil pump. Well, I'm going to use retiming belt since I replaced it. Also the components. What else? I think I'll try to clean up the transmission, maybe throw some new paint on it, make it look fresh. We won't be reusing the original catalytic converters because the J37 has a wider flange for the cylinder head exhaust port. And of course we will be moving over the wiring harness, but I want to clean it up. Be doing a valve adjustment, valve cover gaskets, reseal the oil pump, and rear main seal, of course, while everything's out, so that way we don't have to do it again when it's back in. Alright, I'll keep y'all updated. Alright, here we are on day 2. Right now I just finished removing the wiring harness. Also went ahead and removed the intake manifold because I am going to be using my injectors. Going to work towards separating transmission. So here's the old harness, manifold, took off a cap. I'm going to see about getting some new loom so I can cover up these wires. It's all crumbling. I'm going to look through all the connectors and see if I can find new connectors to depin and repin, so that way I don't have broken ones. I'll just see if I can find them easily. If not, well, we'll keep going. Anyways, I'm gonna remove the belt tensioner, engine mount brackets for the side, front, and the rear, and also the half shaft. So let me keep working towards that. It's pretty windy out today. I don't know what the heck's going on, but that's fine. It'll keep me cool while I keep working on this. Alright, let me keep going. Alright, so here's where I'm at now. Got the transmission separated from the old engine. Yes, it's a mess. It's okay, I'll clean it up. I'm just kind of looking through here, see what's different, just to double check and make sure. It actually looks like the crankshaft sensor location is correct. Maybe the oil filter housing might be different. I'll double check that. Right now, actually, let's go ahead and look at it. Actually, they actually look the same. Yeah, they look the same. Just double check that that sensor. Actually, I think that's the oil pressure switch. It looks like it uses a different connector. So I think it is. Yeah, it looks like a different connector. Okay, well, we'll switch that out. No big deal. And what else? Yeah, I'm gonna take apart the timing cover. And actually, I think for the shits and giggles, I might just go ahead and do a leak down to see how the engine is. I probably should have done that when I got it, but here we are anyways. So, alright, let me keep on working on this. Nice and clean. Just gotta rub off the silicone. Okay, so I just took off the rear main housing, also the oil pan and the oil pump. I'm gonna be resealing the whole engine. Since it's out, I might as well, because I don't want to deal with any oil leaks when it's back in. Here's the oil pan, rear main housing, and the oil pump all cleaned up, nice and prepped. Got some new seals, O-rings, and then the crankshaft seal. And then of course we're going to be using some Honda Bond to seal all that up. And then while we're at it, so the engine is a J37. I know a lot of people worry about with these when it comes to oil consumption. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and let the pistons and the intake valves soak in some cleaner. That way it can break up the carbon buildup. Because really the reason that they burn oil is because there's carbon buildup on the oil control rings. And on one car I was able to fix it. But I did have to do a couple of piston re-rings while I was at Acura. Nothing big, nothing crazy. But I don't want to do that, so let's go ahead and let that soak, and we'll be resealing the engine shortly. Alright, so this is what I'm going to use to clean it off. I get tired of scraping my hand. Let's just take a little wheel to it. good for the most part, so now I'm going to use a little pick to scrape off everything in the threads. Okay, so we took some brake cleaner and sprayed down the surface. I want to make sure there's no oil whatsoever on both the rear main housing and the engine block. Got the new seal for it, and now I'm going to be laying down a layer of Honda Bond, and then we'll stick it on and torque the bolts. They're 12.10 millimeter. I didn't know that until the other day when I took it off. Alright, so the other day my battery ran out, but I installed the front case, the oil pump. I also resealed it. I kind of went a little too deep on that crankshaft seal. We're going to try to run it. If it leaks, well, we'll just replace it. No big deal to me. Probably other people, but not me. And again, resealed the rear main seal casing too, housing, whatever you want to call it. Now I'm going to move towards the oil pan. I'm going to clean the surfaces up. I'm going to clean the oil pan up, which I already did actually. And then I'm probably going to add some fresh paint to this just to clean it up. Let me get started on that. Alright, so here we are. The oil pan's back on. Also the oil filter housing. Now we're going to move on to installing the rest of the timing components. Alright, so timing bolt's on, and I'm just verifying my timing after I pull the pin. And you got this mark right here. You can see the little keyway and also the little dot on the gear lines up with that mark on the oil pump. And coming over here, you can see that this mark on the front head lines up, and then this head lines up with the cam gear. So timing is spot on. A little trick for anybody struggling to put the belt on. These cam gears move just a little bit whenever you loosen the tension on it. Usually I'll loosen this 10mm bolt at the bottom all the way out, and then you'll loosen this one just a tad bit, and it'll swing the tensioner downward instead of the other way. If you were just to take it off, it'll actually move one of the gears quite a bit. But I was struggling to put the belt on because one of the gears just needed a little bit of movement in order to get the teeth lined up. So just a 17mm on the bolt and just tweak it just a little bit, and I was able to slide on the belt on this end. And now we're going to put the covers back on and see what else. Alright, I forgot where I left off. I kind of just remembered that I needed to record. I think I just finished resealing the engine and now put on the flex plate. And now I'm mating the transmission to the engine. Yeah, it's not the most efficient way, but I'm working with what I got. Just going to line up the dowel pins. You see right there, that one's almost lined up, so is the other one. I didn't actually intend to angle it this way, but it kind of just worked out. So, pretty good. Let me just go ahead and start bolting it up. And I think after that we're going to be messing with the accessories and the wiring harness. I really want to pressure wash this transmission though. We'll see what we do. Alright, I don't really remember where I left off. It's another day now, and I'm going to start cleaning up the engine bay. I'm looking at the rack. The rack looks like it's in good shape. I'm not going to be concerned about replacing that. I'm just going to try to degrease some areas and clean it up a bit. All the engine mounts are bad, so I'm replacing the front engine mount, rear engine mount, transmission mount. That lower one's actually good, so I don't have to worry about that. And then right now we're going to try to clean up some more of the engine, and then I'm going to start putting together a wiring harness. But actually, I am going to be removing the valve covers and doing a valve adjustment, new valve cover gaskets as well while everything's out. It's just going to be a lot easier. And afterwards, put it back together, put the new spark plugs in, put the intake manifold on, then the wiring harness. And then we'll keep going from there. Some other little odds and ends. But let me get at it. Alright, so I decided that I am going to be doing the valve adjustment. while the engine's out, of course, because it's way easier. And new valve cover gaskets, and we're going to be resealing the cam end plugs as well, because they looked like they were leaking. So get that taken care of, and then put the valve covers on. I wanted to paint them, but I couldn't decide on a color. I really wanted to color match them to the carbon bronze pearl. And we'll do that at a later date. Okay, so I think I just finished up doing the valve covers, valve adjustment, put in new spark plugs, installed the torque converter bolts, installed the oil pan to transmission bolts, and then I put on the starter. And I also resealed the cam end caps. So now I'm going to start by installing the harness, and I'm going to cover up any exposed wires since I'm already here. And also I'm going to be rewiring the coil connections, because the new coils are different and use different connectors, and I have to use the new coils for the J37. And I'm going to see what other connectors might be damaged that I can repair. And then afterwards, double check everything. I think I'm going to be putting on the intake manifold afterwards, so that way I can get the chain a little closer to the engine, so I can clear the radiator support, because I was having trouble last time because it was hanging a little too low. I had to drop the car down and then raise the jack up higher and kind of lift up the hood. So we'll play with it this time, and hopefully it goes in easier than it came out. Okay, so now I just finished installing the catalytic converters. They are different for the J37, and I had to get some hardware because I didn't have any. Also rewire the coil connectors to the new pigtails, and just looking around, making sure everything's plugged up. I also had to rewire the oil pressure sensor, or oil pressure switch, because the old pressure switch doesn't thread into the J37, and the J37 uses a different connector. So luckily they gave me the connector. All I did was just rewire it, and I think that about wraps it up. Just plugging in the rest of the connectors, and then making sure there's nothing in the way when I go back in. Installed my new engine mount for the front, innovative, excuse me, and then stock replacement for the rear, and then stock replacement for the side engine mount and transmission. Again, the lower one's fine, didn't mess with it. But yeah, I think we're about ready to go back in, try to clean up as best as I could, and let's do this. Sun's getting real low, but we're almost in. Alright, so the engine's back in. Got all the engine mounts bolted up, started putting on the accessories, and I forgot to record. Put the manifold back on. Now I just need to hook up these power wires for the starter, and then also I need to put in the axles. I had to clean up the threads on that one because it was a little damaged. Put the axles back in. I already added engine oil. Put in some transmission fluid because it lost most of it, probably all of it, and then make sure to drain out the radiator, get all the water out, and then we should be ready to start, and not too long from now. Let me go ahead and get the axles back in. Alright, so everything's put together. Already put the axles in with new axle nuts, just gotta make sure to notch them. Got to tighten up the sway bar link. Topped off the coolant and the transmission fluid. Added oil. Made sure everything's good. Everything's connected. Just hooked up the battery. It's got power. Yep. Got the air intake hooked up. Everything should be good to go. Everything's good here too. And I haven't even tried cranking it yet, but crap. Just dropped the key. Let's give it a shot. It is gonna be loud because there's no downpipe, but whatever. Here goes nothing. And it won't start. What's not hooked up? Give it a second. Feel about it. Oil light might be on because I didn't, well, maybe it won't be able to, excuse me. I made sure to hook up the sensor, and I knew I had to use a different pigtail, but maybe that sensor just isn't compatible. Maybe I should have used the other oil pump housing. I am going to hook up my scantel to see how it's running. See if there's any misfires. It seems like it's running a little rough, but it's not noisy. I just remember I didn't put in the rear engine mount bolt, so I will notice a little bit more movement than normal. I'll put that on at a later time. Oh, check it out. I forgot to plug this vacuum line too for the front engine mount. So, since I upgraded to an innovative engine mount, it doesn't use a vacuum line anymore. I gotta make sure to plug that because right now it's causing a vacuum leak. But, you know what? Stick that in right there for now. That didn't work. I just put a hole in it. But anyways, now look, it's smoothed out a little bit. Oh, I do need to do the ECM, PCM relearn, crank relearn, ECM, PCM reset, excuse me, and the crank relearn. But check it out, it's running, and it only smoked out a little bit because I had some of that intake valve and GDI cleaner in the combustion chambers. Alright, I ran the engine yesterday. Thought it was running a little rough, and then it started misfiring. I guess the whole time it was misfiring. You can see I even whipped out my compression tester. I'm over here freaking out because cylinder number 5 was the one that was misfiring. So immediately I took off the valve cover, double checked my valve clearance, and you know, I swapped the coils around real quick. Didn't even think to check anything else, but I was already going ahead and assuming the worst. Compression was good, so over 210 all across. So I was like, okay, well, the only thing I touched was the connector. Obviously I had to rewire it, but if you can see there, I tried to match up the colors because they were similar, and the red one with the red was correct. However, I can't really get it to focus. It looks like I mixed up the wires on the ground side, because, you know, I got a white stripe one in the middle, but I don't have it over here. So, yep, wasn't paying attention. I'm gonna flip those around and see what happens. Rather than cutting and rewiring them, I just went ahead and depinned them, switched them around. Just gonna have to notate that the wires aren't exactly matched. So let's go ahead and run it and test it out. Alright, so unfortunately I was gonna get ready to drive it. It stopped misfiring. I fixed the wires, I had them flipped around, but the radiator never broke. I noticed that it was starting to seep, and then when I went to go put the hose and put a clamp, boom, nipple broke off. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure the transmission fluid's good. Right now I'm flushing out all the old brake fluid because they didn't have a brake fluid cap on since I bought the car. It actually fell in and they never scooped it out. So this kind of sucks right now. But at least it runs. Also, I gotta make sure to check the tire strain fluid level. Yep, it's low. I'm gonna top that off. Yeah, well, next update, hopefully it'll be driving. No first test drive yet, but it's a well-deserved wash. It's been sitting too long. Had all the pollen and leaves on it. At least I've been able to move it with it on all cylinders. So yeah, let's see what's next. Test drive, hopefully that works out well, and then we can move on to some other fun stuff. Thanks for watching.